How do you get a girl to go from being kind of into you to being completely obsessed with you? That's what we're going to talk about in today's video. One of the biggest challenges men face is meeting a woman who is interested but never quite reaching that next level where she's chasing them. Things may be going well. There's attraction, no major arguments, and she's into them, but it still feels like she's just settling rather than truly desiring them. So how do you move her from that stage of mild interest to deep attraction? It all comes down to this. How do you make her think about you non-stop? One of the key principles in attraction is that a woman needs to be thinking about you even when you're not around. The more time she spends thinking about you, the stronger her feelings become. The problem is that most men unknowingly do things that cause a woman to think less about them. It's important to be aware of this, as small mistakes can make her interest fade over time. One of the most powerful natural advantages comes from an abundance mindset. When a man has options, he naturally behaves in ways that make women more drawn to him. This is why women tend to chase men who are desired by others. These men naturally create a sense of intrigue and challenge. If you're not currently in that position, where you have multiple options, and these behaviors happen effortlessly, you need to be conscious of them. Otherwise, a woman who was once into you may gradually lose interest. Let's go through some of the key things to keep in mind. Number one is, you can't come off as a sure thing. When you're hanging out with a woman and things are going well, both of you can feel the connection. But if she leaves completely certain that everything went perfectly and that you're totally into her, there's nothing left for her to anticipate or wonder about. There's no tension or excitement. You never want to present yourself in a way that makes her feel like she has you completely. A small example of this comes from something that happened in a relationship. At the end of a date, instead of making solid plans for the next one, I would simply say, "See you soon," or "Talk to you soon." Later, my girlfriend told me that this drove her crazy. She explained that most guys at the end of a date try to plan the next one, asking, "When can I see you again?" But my response left her wondering, did I have fun? Did I want to see her again? What did "see you soon" even mean? When she doesn't have a clear answer, she starts thinking about you more, trying to figure out what's going on. That's what keeps you on her mind. Nice guys, on the other hand, often come across as a sure thing because they try to lock things down too quickly. They might say something like, "I have a wedding in 3 months and I'd love for you to come with me." Now she knows he's already thinking far into the future with her, which removes any sense of intrigue. Anything you can do to avoid being a sure thing will work in your favor. The next element of making a woman think about you non-stop is being less predictable. Most men think of the obvious ways to be unpredictable, like taking longer to respond to texts. While that can be one example, there are many ways to break patterns and create intrigue. For instance, a man once mentioned that in the early stages of dating a woman, they would exchange a good night text every single night. Something like, "Good night, hope your day went well." Over time, this became predictable, giving her nothing to think about. The simplest way to introduce unpredictability in that situation was to occasionally not send that goodnight text. Suddenly, she's wondering why it didn't come. The key is to recognize her expectations and occasionally break them. Not all the time, but just enough to create moments of uncertainty. When you break an expectation, you open the door to curiosity and even a little confusion. That's when a woman starts thinking about you more. If she receives that goodnight text like usual, she can comfortably go to sleep and move on to other thoughts. But if that text doesn't come, suddenly she's wondering, where is he? Who is he with? Her imagination starts filling in the blanks, and before she knows it, she's checking social media, trying to figure out what you're up to. The more attention she gives you in her mind, the more she convinces herself that she must really like you. The next way to make a woman think about you is by becoming multidimensional. When a woman meets you, she quickly forms an idea of who she thinks you are. Maybe she sees you as a software engineer with a specific group of friends, and she mentally places you in a certain category. Over time, if this image is continuously reinforced without any surprises, it can start to feel predictable and even unremarkable. To keep things interesting, you need to break out of that mold by introducing different sides of yourself. A great way to do this is by adding contradictions to your personality. For example, a man who is deeply spiritual might be seen only as the spiritual guy. While that's fine, it's also limiting. But if he also has a ruthless business mindset, that unexpected contrast makes him far more intriguing. Think about the most compelling characters in stories. They're never completely predictable. The most loved characters tend to have depth, like Han Solo from Star Wars. He wasn't just a good guy or a bad guy. He had layers of personality that made him engaging. In contrast, Luke Skywalker, while the hero, was more straightforward and predictable, making him less interesting to many people. The key is to recognize how others might categorize you and then intentionally introduce new layers to your personality. When you break free from being pigeonholed, you become far more captivating and unforgettable. The fourth way to make a woman think about you more is by displaying less nice guy behavior. Nice guys tend to be predictable, overly agreeable, and avoid confrontation. The problem with this is that drama is something women naturally feed on. While no one wants toxic chaos, a certain level of emotional stimulation keeps a woman engaged. If there's no drama at all, she won't have anything to think about when it comes to you. Sometimes, drama happens naturally. Some men, whether by being unreliable, unpredictable, or disorganized, unintentionally create drama by canceling plans or making mistakes. Even though a woman might complain about it, this unpredictability keeps her mind occupied. On the other hand, nice guys who have their lives completely together often create a relationship environment that is too calm and predictable. While men may prefer a peaceful, stable relationship, women often interpret too much stability as a lack of passion. This is why it's important to introduce a little bit of tension by not always being overly accommodating or predictable. A bit of challenge, unpredictability, and a refusal to always play the nice guy role will naturally make her think about you more. The fifth element that makes a woman think about you non-stop is introducing mystery. The more mystery there is, the more she will be drawn to thinking about you. Here's an example. If a woman is scrolling through your Facebook page and sees 3 different posts, one of you with your arm around a girl, another of you out with a bunch of friends, and a third showing a beer and a martini glass with the caption, "Cheers to a good night with good company," which one will make her think the most? The third one. Why? Because it's vague and leaves room for speculation. She'll wonder, who is he with? She might assume the martini glass belongs to a woman. But which woman? Why didn't he post a picture of her? Her mind starts racing, trying to fill in the blanks, and that keeps you on her mind. Mystery makes someone think about you non-stop. A lot of guys struggle with this, because when they really like a woman, they hesitate to create mystery. They worry that if they don't respond immediately, she'll think they're not interested and might start talking to another guy. They don't want to seem unpredictable or distant. But this is where balance is key. You don't want to overdo it. If you become too mysterious, too unpredictable, or act like a total jerk with no indication that you could be her boyfriend, she'll lose interest and move on. To make a woman think about you non-stop, you need to avoid being a sure thing. Create doubt, be less predictable, and consciously look for ways to break her expectations. If she's expecting something, occasionally disrupt that expectation. Make yourself more multidimensional. Don't let her pigeonhole you into a specific type. Be the kind of character in a movie that has different layers, someone she's constantly trying to figure out. Finally, being less of a nice guy and incorporating elements of mystery will keep her intrigued. When you introduce mystery, you make yourself more compelling, and that's what keeps her thinking about you. The sixth element I'm going to discuss is the power of emotional highs and lows. If you want a woman to think about you constantly, you need to understand one thing. Attraction isn't just about making her happy. It's about making her feel something on a deeper level. Attraction isn't built through constant comfort. It's built through excitement, uncertainty, and emotional contrast. If every interaction is predictable and flat, there's nothing for her mind to latch onto. But if your presence creates emotional highs and lows, she won't be able to ignore you. This doesn't mean creating unnecessary drama or playing mind games. It's about making moments stand out. People remember experiences that stir emotions. That's why roller coasters, first kisses, and suspenseful movies stick in our minds. The key is to create positive highs and subtle lows that keep her engaged. One way to do this is by alternating between warmth and detachment. If you're always warm and available, she will take it for granted. But if you mix in moments where you're slightly distant, focused on your own world, she'll notice the shift. The moment she feels like she doesn't fully have you, her mind starts working over time. For example, let's say you're texting a woman every evening, sharing fun and engaging conversations. She starts expecting it. Then, one night, instead of texting her, you go out with friends and post a picture of the night without context. Suddenly, she wonders why you didn't text her. Was it intentional? Is he with someone else? Her mind begins racing, and now, without saying a word, you've made her think about you more. The same principle applies in person. If you're always agreeable, she knows exactly how you'll respond. But if you throw in a playful challenge or a moment of unexpected boldness, you create a reaction. Maybe she teases you, expecting you to just laugh it off. But instead you smirk and say, "Oh, you think you've got me figured out?" Dangerous assumption. Suddenly there's intrigue. It's about contrast. When a woman feels excitement, anticipation, and just enough uncertainty to keep things interesting, she won't be able to get you out of her head. The final element in making a woman think about you constantly is the scarcity principle. Simply put, it's the idea that people value things more when they believe they are in limited supply. Think about it. When something is scarce, it instantly becomes more desirable. You can use this principle in your interactions with her without playing games or manipulating the situation. The key is to avoid over-availability. If you're always around, always texting, always showing up at the drop of a hat, she won't have a reason to miss you. Why would she? You're always there, fulfilling her every need, and it doesn't leave room for her to wonder what you're doing, who you're with, or when she'll see you next. That element of scarcity, the idea that she can't always have you, creates a natural sense of longing. But here's the thing. This isn't about completely disappearing or becoming cold. It's about introducing a healthy sense of distance. Imagine you've been chatting all week, and you've had a few fun hangouts, but then, for a day or two, you don't reach out as much. Maybe you're busy with work or just taking time for yourself. She won't feel neglected. Instead, she'll notice your absence, and that makes you more intriguing. She's now wondering what you're up to and when she'll get to see you again. That's the magic of scarcity. In relationships, a bit of unpredictability and scarcity sparks curiosity. If you're always available, she can take you for granted, but when she has to put a little effort into seeing you or hearing from you, that effort becomes more valuable. It's important to remember, though, that the scarcity principle should be used in moderation. If you pull back too much, she might think you're not interested. But if you find that balance, being present, but also creating moments where she's not always able to reach you, that's when you'll start seeing the effect of scarcity. Women often gravitate toward what's hard to get. And by keeping your time and attention a little more scarce, you give her a reason to want to work for it. That little bit of distance creates attraction. It makes her think about you more than if you were always just there. So, make yourself a bit harder to pin down and watch how it increases her desire to be around you. To wrap this up, let's talk about the core idea behind all these strategies. You want to create that lasting, magnetic attraction that makes her think about you non-stop. It's not about playing games or being manipulative. It's about understanding human nature and using psychological principles in a way that benefits both of you. When you break the predictability, introduce a little mystery, and create moments of scarcity, you're keeping her intrigued, curious, and wanting more. Now, I know some of you might feel like this approach sounds too complicated or feels unnatural, but trust me, it's all about being authentic. It's not about becoming someone you're not, just about making subtle changes to how you interact. The key here is balance. You don't want to overdo it and turn into a mystery man who's just unreachable. You want to keep things exciting, but also show that you're genuinely interested. A little unpredictability, a touch of scarcity, and a deeper sense of who you are is all it takes. As you apply these principles, remember, it's not about manipulation. It's about showing your value, setting boundaries, and keeping the dynamic alive. You want her to miss you, to think about you, and to feel that pull of attraction. So embrace these techniques, but always stay true to yourself. Finally, I want to encourage you to take action. Don't just watch this video and move on. Actually try these things out in your own life. Start with something simple like changing up your routine or pulling back for a couple of days. See how it shifts the energy in your interactions. You've got this. The more you practice, the more natural it will feel. And before you know it, she'll be thinking about you all the time. Stay confident, stay in control, and remember, your value is undeniable.